The reality of reading through Alex Jones' text messages is you see a man whose life is profoundly boring and profoundly sad. To see what's going on with him is not fun, and he is not at the center of anything. He is shunned by almost everybody he knows. So there's really nothing like that. I can tell you that Mr. Jones has made some statements about what's in those text messages.
What a surprise. What a surprise. That doesn't surprise me in the least. Yeah, wow. Everyone hates the dude who just screams nonsense all day and is super racist, homophobic, and transphobic. Wow.
Joining us now is Mark Bankston, the lawyer representing Neil Heslin and Scarlett Lewis. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is my first televised interview since walking away from that courthouse. And I wanted to come here to TYT, support independent progressive media. I'm sure I'll have.
Is he a fucking public enemy on a vinyl behind him? Bernie Sanders? Rage Against the Machine? What? Holy shit.
To do some corporate media down the road, but I wanted to come talk to you first.
Well, we really appreciate it. And
incredibly based.
Let me just start off by thanking you, not because you're doing the show, although I do thank you for that, but we're living in this era where it feels as though there's never any justice served, where the bad guys get away with all sorts of terrible behavior meant to enrich themselves, meant to profit off of the pain and sorrow and suffering of others. And that moment has gotten a lot of attention because you caught him in such an obvious lie, and it felt good to see him scramble.
I love this. Like, it was pretty cool, wasn't it? It felt really good. I really enjoyed myself.
For some talking point in that moment. And so talk to me about how.
Yeah, I agree. This should be the new legal. Let's got Bankston, you know, let's have a social democrat doing, you know, pro Bernie talking points and stuff.
You explain how you got the text messages to begin with. But what I'm curious about is, why do you think his lawyers didn't step in to ensure that you didn't use those text messages against him, you know, citing attorney-client privilege? They failed to even do that.
Well, I mean, if you listen to Jones's people and his allies, they're now spreading conspiracy theories that that gentleman who was a former member of the Eric Holder Justice Department must have done this intentionally and hatched this scheme to somehow destroy Jones. And now, you know, Roger Stone's begging Jones to sue him and everything. But you know, it's just one conspiracy after another. The real truth is, you had a lawyer who was in over his head doesn't do civil law that much.
Yeah. Libs of TikTok, Keffels. I love that Libs of TikTok tweeted about me twice, got dragged by my fans, and then left me alone and chose easier targets. It's really pathetic. Libs of TikTok, like Hayaraichek, is such a coward. All she does is target small little accounts of like teachers, educators specifically, and then uses those accounts to try and get them vilified because she's a transphobe and a homophobe. That's all there is.
Did not know what to do
coward.
To take his client's information seriously or how to protect it. So when I got that information and I saw that clock rolling out, knowing that Jones would hit the.
Isn't the current legal eagle pretty based though? Yeah, but why not go for more based? You know, you could have based plus right here.
Stand one day after.
Wow, multiple Bernie Sanders things. Really, I wonder, like, he's like, okay, I'm going on TYT, gotta get my props ready just so everyone knows what I'm all about.
It became free and clear. You know, you just
because like if this is his office, I imagine when clients come in, he does have that in the background. I could be wrong. You know.
Wait and see if he does what he's supposed to do, and he did not. You know, most trials have a discovery period where these kind of secrets come out, so there are no Perry Mason moments of trial. But when you have a defendant who refused to cooperate.
Super legal. Oh, I like legal legend. There you go. Yeah, he could be legal legend.
Discovery for years, thumbed its nose at the court. This sort of time bomb was just sort of waiting to happen. But it took some real drop in the ball on the side of opposing counsel to allow that moment to happen. And I mean, you know, I get what you're saying about sometimes it just doesn't feel like there's any justice in the world. It sure felt like one in that moment. I take down wrongdoers all the time. I just don't happen to do it on, you know, live TV in front of an audience of millions in a perfect made-for-movie moment. There was a real poetic justice to it.
Absolutely. In fact, what was frustrating was how, as soon as Alex Jones was banned from various platforms as a result of his defamatory statements toward these victims, The conversation in the country immediately devolved into a free speech debate, even though we're talking about private companies that can do whatever they want in regard.
Thank you. Oh my God. Like, how does Jimmy Dore not get that? And he's like, I argued with everyone at TYT. I fought everyone about this. I mean, I hated the things Alex Jones was saying and doing, but at the end of the day, I thought he had a right to do it because of free speech. I was like, free speech in a private corporation? What are you talking about?
To their terms of service, they can ban whoever they want, and at the same.
And they do. Like this idea, like that the free speech absolutists have, like if you don't watch yourself, they'll come for you. One day, just wait, lefties, it's gonna happen to you. And it's like, that already happens. Like, motherfuckers, I got banned off 2 YouTube channels because I got mass flagged for things I did not do. It had nothing even to do with my speech. My feet, I guess, well, I suppose my speech was offensive to the people I was attacking. So if you were a fan of Joe Rogan or PewDiePie or whoever did it, or the quartering, well then yeah, you wanted my speech to be silenced and you got what you wanted. Because again, we have no control.
Time, even if we're talking about the government stepping in and violating someone's First Amendment rights, defamation is not protected under the United States Constitution, and it's amazing how quickly.
And by the way, Alex Jones did exactly what every single person who argues about this recommends you should do. Like if Jimmy Dore is like, he lost his free speech, this platform kicked him off. And it's like, well, no, he still has the ability to have speech. He just created his own platform, Infowars, and continued to broadcast his hate speech through that. He did under the rules what you're supposed to do.
Certain individuals in this country forget that. They pretend as if defamation is protected. Now,
isn't it funny that some of those same individuals are the ones who threaten frivolous defamation suits every day? And yeah, when the cannons get turned on them, they're singing a different tune.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I find all of these people who are screaming about free speech, especially if they're on the right, they're the biggest snowflakes. Like, honestly, every single one of them will block you so fast your head will spin. Like, every single one of them who's constantly like, oh yeah, 1984, this is cancel culture, we need to have absolute free speech at all times, free speech is paramount, and blah blah blah. They don't want free speech. As soon as they see speech they don't like, they're like, whoa, speech, block. Like, boom.
Had obtained those text messages. Did anyone from the federal...
Dore blocked you too, Winston? I thought just Hinkle did. But yeah, apparently Jackson Hinkle blocked one of our mods because he said, why are you afraid of phone calls? Because yeah, Jackson Hinkle's scared of Owen Higgins calling him. He was doing a piece on him for Rolling Stone. And he was like, hey, can I get an interview with you? Called him a bunch of times. And he just ignored all the calls. And then afterwards was like, oh, I'm not afraid. I'll definitely take your, we'll just do it in a medium that I want. We will do a debate. It's like, this is a journalist asking to interview you. If you have no comment, you can just say that. I've got no comment for you. I would not like to be interviewed. And then that'll be reflected in the article. It said he did not respond to a request for comment, or he declined to comment on the story. That's all that's going to happen. You don't have to do that.
Government reach out to you.
Dore got mad that I mentioned a Sam Cedar debate. See, fucking snowflakes.
To obtain it themselves for the January 6th investigation?
Yeah, everybody's asking me about this. This is the topic that everybody wants to hear about. I've given some preliminary comments on it. I can reiterate those here. I am cooperating with the January 6th investigation. I will cooperate with any law enforcement organization that wants to talk to me. They've made it clear they want them. The judge gave me full clearance to say that that privilege has been waived, and so yes, I am cooperating with them. I can tell you that I can't say much more about the contents of the text as they relate to January 6th, but I do have a few interesting surprises I can share with your viewers if they'd like to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so one of the things we've been seeing over the past couple of days is Mr. Jones making a lot of statements about his text message. And I certainly can tell you that reviewing his text messages, I expected him to be in the center of a maelstrom of right-wing figures who are engaged in cabals to take down this country. The fact is, it's just not true. The reality of reading through Alex Jones' text messages is you see a man whose life is profoundly boring and profoundly sad. To see what's going on with him is not fun, and he is not at the center of anything. He is shunned by almost everybody he knows. So there's really nothing like that. I can tell you that Mr. Jones has made some statements about what's in those text messages.
What a fucking surprise. What a surprise. That doesn't surprise me in the least. Yeah, wow. Everyone hates the dude who just screams nonsense all day and is super racist, homophobic, and transphobic. Wow. Oh, what a revelation.
I'll fact check those really quick for you. He told me on Infowars the other day that while I got a hold of these text messages, there are nothing intimate like pics in there. I can tell you that categorically untrue. That is something I was exposed to. Sometimes as a lawyer, you have to go through materials that you didn't want to see.
Right.
And now those have been redacted so that any member of my staff does not have to suffer the similar thing that I did.
Wait.
Oh, are we talking about the penis? Or are we talking about the Roger Stone thing? Because Alex Jones sent pictures, apparently, allegedly, of his naked wife to Roger Stone without her consent, which is revenge porn and super, super fucked up if it happened, allegedly.
So it did include that kind of imagery?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. I was unfortunately exposed to that. And Mr. Jones can rest assured that I will protect him in that regard. I will not be...
So, there was nude pictures of Alex Jones. I like that Alex Jones, because... So here's the story. Alex Jones gave this enormous cachet of files to his own legal team. But when he gave that to his legal team, he didn't delete the own collection of his nude photos or his wife's naked pictures. He just gave them everything. They're like, okay, so Jones, we need to know what kind of incriminating whatever you have. Can you give us this huge data dump of your phone? He's like, yeah, of course, here you go, take it all. Wouldn't you first be like, well, I do have this opportunity now, before it gets handed over to my lawyers, to delete some things that might be sensitive. I could do that, or I could just give them everything. You know, hopefully it never ends up in the wrong hands. Hopefully it doesn't end up in the opposing legal team's, purview. Hopefully it doesn't end up in the January 6th committee. Hopefully it doesn't get leaked. Oh, man.
Releasing any of his intimate photos. And I mean, it's not a rare thing for a person to have that sort of thing. So, no, I'm not trying to judge the man, but yeah, I had to be exposed to that. The other interesting thing is that Mr. Jones said that there was an intimate photo of his wife on the phone. That I can also confirm that's true. And I normally wouldn't talk about that in public, but there is a public interest angle into this, is that I'm a little concerned about it, because that intimate photo was sent to Roger Stone. And I don't know if that was consensual. And if it wasn't consensual, and Mrs. Wolf Jones should know about that,
allegedly,
and there might be something that needs to be done about that. Then again, it could be totally consensual. But when I see that, and I don't see any indication that it was, I'm concerned something might not be on the up and up with that. There are certainly laws in certain states about that. I can tell you that there are only a few household names in those lists. Mr. Jones does not have a deep roster of friends within right-wing spheres. And there are a lot of people he wants to talk to who don't seem too interested in talking to him. But I can tell you another thing about all of that is you do see some interesting things. You see Mr. Jones' employees claiming that they have a back channel to Ted Cruz. They have ways to get information directly into Ted Cruz's hands. And whether they're blowing smoke up Mr. Jones, I don't know. But they certainly claim that they do have that back channel. Otherwise, there's some...
Like, it would not surprise me in the slightest to find out that Alex Jones has an entire circle of people who are like Alex Jones and also just lie and make shit up all the time. And they're like, oh yeah, I've got a secret back channel to the highest levels of government. I can speak directly to Ted Cruz for you. Yes.
Interesting things.
And then when, like, obviously they don't, and he's like, did Ted get my message? It's like, he hasn't replied yet. Don't worry. Don't worry, sir. It's coming.
In those messages, we're going to be reviewing them for newsworthiness. We're going to be working with a nonprofit to be able to do an analysis of that. And anything newsworthy, I can guarantee you we will be releasing to the public. But when it comes to things like personal identifying information, things about Mr. Jones's children, things like that, we are going to protect that with a basic sense of human morality, which I think is more than we could ever expect if my cell phone fell into Mr. Jones's hands.
Yep.
Wow. Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Oh, they were already accusing the judge of being part of a secret pedophile ring. Are you kidding me? If they had any kind of incriminating evidence on the opposing legal team, it would be all over Infowars. First, they would leak it somewhere else so they didn't have to take credit for it. It's like, oh, we just got these important documents. Apparently, I have the defense lawyers' naked photos. Now, it brings me no joy in showing you this, but I am going to now put it on screen so you can all judge the size and girth of his penis. And this is the deep state, everybody. You can see right now we're looking into the hole of the deep state, the very specific hole right now. It's happening.
About that, by the way, that last part. Wow, that is incredible. So I want to back up a little bit and ask you about how you became involved with the victims' families here. What motivated you to provide counsel to these families?
Well, it's a call you don't say no to. I mean, that's just how it is. I actually started on this adventure with Mr. Jones by starting to represent Marcel Fontaine, who was a young man in Boston who was falsely accused of being the Parkland shooter. And what happened there is that his picture had been featured on 4chan. And he was wearing, everybody knows it by now, the threadless t-shirt that's the Communist Party t-shirt. And it's a joke. It has Lenin and Mao, and they're all like wearing lampshades on their heads and drinking from solo cups. Visual pun on Communist Party. And because some people had been making fun of him on 4chan for that, somebody decided to try to frame him up as the shooter at the Parkland shooting. Infowars ran with that off of nothing more than off of nothing more than 4chan. And as a result of that, I was connected in with Mr. Fontaine. We were sort of running in the same sort of political circles at the time. I knew he was a young activist, and I agreed to take on his case. When I brought that suit, it was the first major defamation suit against Alex Jones that was going anywhere. You may remember that there was a Chobani suit against him. Mr. Alefantes and the Comet Ping Pong was bringing a suit. But Mr. Jones apologized really quickly in those cases. And he did so in jurisdictions where that apology pretty much foreclosed a suit. Not the case in Texas. And in fact, they never apologized to Mr. Fontaine. When I brought that suit and national news broke of it, Neil Heslin called me up. He said, I've been wanting to bring suit against Alex Jones. I'm having trouble finding an attorney who will take him on. I said, you found him now. Let's do it. The rest is history. 4 years of beating that man across a courtroom every chance I got. And now we're sitting on top of a giant judgment.
I love it. I love it so much. You know, one thing that was disheartening was the moment when Neil Heslin was able to testify, and he was looking forward to that moment because he finally got a chance to kind of confront Alex Jones about what he had done to his family. And Alex Jones, of course, wasn't in the courtroom. And then there was some scheduling mix-up where Jones was in the courtroom when Scarlett Lewis testified, and it was powerful testimony on its own. But what I appreciated about that moment was that she called him out on the lies he continues to tell, even as this trial is ongoing. Can you discuss that?
That was an interesting moment, and I actually think of all the many, many mistakes that Mr. Jones made in his legal defense and all of that. Walking into the courtroom before Scarlett Lewis continued testifying was maybe the greatest mistake he made. When he sat down in that chair and she could make eye contact with him on the stand, it galvanized her, and she turned into a symbol of righteousness and a symbol of love and understanding and confusion in the face of what Mr. Jones was doing, and it hit hard. He was walking in and out of that courtroom all the time, just showing up whenever he'd want to, accompanied by a ragtag group of security. It looked weird, but when he sat down there and he did that, by then the case was over. The cross-examination of Jones was just a cathartic moment for everybody. That jury completely understood everything that was going on from the moment Ms. Lewis testified. It was powerful, and I think it's going to live with everybody who was in that courtroom.
Something that was shocking was how first of all, the patience demonstrated by the judge really blew me away. She had patience that I don't think most people would have in response to Alex Jones lying under oath, in regard to Jones and his staffers ignoring her rules. And you did a great job in monitoring what Infowars was up to during the trial, what they were talking about on the show. So can you discuss what you noticed in their programming? Because it is incredible that they're going through this trial. Everyone's focusing on it nationally, and yet they just can't stop themselves from continuing what got them in trouble in the first place.
It was stunning, and I need to give a hat tip here to my consulting expert Dan Friesen of the podcast Knowledge Fight, who I would consider maybe the nation's foremost authority on Alex Jones. And he and his team were monitoring the broadcast during the trial, because I'm in the courtroom, I can't do that. And it's wild to think that during this trial, they had their people on air putting pictures of the judge on fire, calling her a pedophile, saying that the jury is a bunch of blue-collar yokels who don't know what planet they're on. And that's not what we're talking about. There was so much more that happened in the trial. If any of those things happened in a normal trial, that would be the story. But here, there was so much more that those are almost buried in the details.
Can I get a count?
But to actually see that, and talking with the jury particularly afterwards, which they were really willing to talk to us, is they were absolutely mystified that someone would get on and start talking about the trial in that way. I mean, to talk about the trial at all is kind of shocking, but that way, to be able to pull those clips out in the middle of the court to say, you're not taking this seriously. Everything you're doing right now in the courtroom is the same act that you do every single time. And that's why Scarlett was right, is you can sit in this courtroom, you can apologize, you can say you believe I'm 100% real, but the next day you're gonna get on Infowars and you're gonna say I'm a manipulated agent of the deep state. The same crap keeps on coming. They were telling their viewers that a literal script was being followed for this trial. And a lot of those people believed it.
The lack of trust in our media, I think, is justified, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we critique the corporate media on the show regularly, what they withhold from the American public and all of that. And so I'm worried that we're just dealing with a symptom, although.
Southern Baptist Convention says it's under investigation by the Department of Justice. Damn.
He's traumatizing people who've already been traumatized through terrible, tragic events. But at the same time, if we do away with Alex Jones, is that enough to stop all the grifters that exist in the periphery who make money off of, trafficking these lies about people?
No, it's not. And I'm gonna tell you right now,
of course not.
As a plaintiff's lawyer, I'm not here to save you. I can't. I really can't. And we can punish the people who need to be punished. I'm certainly carrying on the fight. Y'all may know that I'm suing on behalf of Imran Alron, who was maliciously defamed by the Daily Caller and Salem Publishing about this IT hacking scandal in the House that was invented out of nothing. And I'll keep pursuing these kinds of things one at a time, throwing those starfish back into the sea. But I think you and I both know the real answer, which is until we have an American government that provides substantially for the material needs and psychological needs of the American people, they will continue to be vulnerable to this kind of misinformation and manipulation. Until that happens, you're right, it's just a symptom of a much, much bigger problem.
So what do you see happening in the future? Because this is just one of several trials that Alex Jones is gonna have to face as a result of this summary defamation judgment. Can you talk a little bit about what the future holds with the upcoming trials and how you see it playing out?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's gonna depend a lot on what the bankruptcy court does and what happens in the next few weeks when we're up there. If it could turn into a full-blown catastrophe for Mr. Jones, the whole bankruptcy could get dismissed, or the bankruptcy could itself turn into a tar pit he cannot get out of that ultimately pulls him down under. Those courts will probably at some point in the very near future refer both of the cases that are pending in Texas back down to trial, as well as the Connecticut case. And those will get tried to a jury. And then we'll either be right back to a bankruptcy court or we'll be going to those state courts to enforce those judgments. And no path on this looks good for Mr. Jones. There's not a road here that is a protected road where he thinks he's going to get off of a silver bullet. It's not going to happen. Somewhere or another, depending on what form it's going to be, there is a massive reckoning to be coming over the next 4 to 5 months. And that's what's almost sort of poetic about it too, is that this isn't going to be a sudden bang or a whimper, right? This is going to be a long process where Mr. Jones slowly and surely deconstructs. And we plan to help that process along. And at the end of it, yeah, we really believe that Mr. Jones will be gone from the American stage.
You seem like a strong person who can withstand intimidation and threats from Alex Jones's supporters. But I am curious, since you are so public and you've made news with the way that you've handled this case, have you dealt with any threats against you or family members?
Oh yeah, constantly. And it was even earlier in the case. There were things happening where Jones or his lawyer, Robert Barnes, would get on Infowars and say stuff about me. And then, yeah, my phone would get filled up because my email's easily accessible. But what really worried me is I ended up getting messages on my wife's phone, on her text messages, which should not be available. In the wake of this trial, I have an email box. Normally when you get out of trial, it's pretty full because you're ignoring your work. This time it's full of every media organization, tons of fan mail, and more crazy people threatening to kill me than you could possibly believe. I've learned though from my clients, those aren't the people you have to worry about, people who send those impotent messages. It's the ones who never send a message.
Right.
And so I'm being careful, but it's part of the territory that comes with this job. I know one thing is my clients have seen some heat come off of them. This Sandy Hook hoax lie is now buried except for the most crazy people in America. Nobody really believes this stuff anymore. They've moved on to other things. So for them, it's nice to see a light at the end of the tunnel. A light where their life can be more about honoring Jesse's memory than trying to fight for the fact that he existed.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sociopathic what they've been doing at Infowars. I can't imagine further victimizing people who just lost their children in a shooting like this. And again, I just want to go back to what I opened this interview with. Thank you, because it feels good. Even if you're not personally impacted by what Alex Jones is doing, it feels good to see justice for these families. It's been absolutely heartbreaking.
Not to mention, it was just incredibly satisfying to watch that man melt down in real time, you know? Like when they pour water on a witch in The Wizard of Oz, just I'm melting. Like it's a serious problem. I got problems with my larynx. You don't understand how bad. Okay, sorry. What's this about? Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you got a private text message. Well, yeah, I know. I sent it to my lawyers. What is this, for Perry Mason moment or something? Like that. Oh, chef's kiss. Like, thank you for your service, honestly.
And I really hope that they now have the opportunity to heal and put this Alex Jones part of the tragedy behind them. So final question for you, I guess, is, if you could just change one thing about how this has played out. It's played out pretty well, I'm gonna be honest with you, but it's taken years. I mean, 4 years Alex Jones would not cooperate with the discovery process. If there's one thing that you wish could have been different, what would it be?
Absolutely nothing. That 4 years of contempt and disobedience to the court ended up fully funding all of our expenses that we put forward for the Sandy Hook families. They keep saying, well, we were funded by Soros money or anything. No, we didn't need any of that. We paid for it ourselves up front. And
of course he did. Of course he went there. Yeah, deep state, Soros, they were funded by the cabal, the Illuminati, everything.
Alex Jones ended up paying for it. And that process kind of revealed the whole rotten edifice of Infowars. And for it to conclude in this way, in this poetic of a fashion, I wouldn't change a single thing. And I haven't seen these families this happy ever.
I love it. Mark Bankston, you're doing incredibly important work. Thank you so much for speaking with us and giving us a look behind the scenes. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you'll come back on soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for all you do. Solidarity forever.
Thanks for watching the Young.
Solidarity forever? What is this world? Oh man, I'm getting way too much opium this week. It was wild. Actually, the last couple weeks, I don't know. We went through this period of the Supreme Court decisions being handed down, and I was just getting slammed. I was like, civil rights in the US is being eroded so fucking fast, it's making my head spin. And then all of a sudden, it was just like bam, 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 win after win after win. Alex Jones completely and utterly destroyed in court. His text messages, fucking his entire phone dump being accidentally sent by his own legal team to the other side, that all being turned over to January 6th. It turns out that he was texting Tucker Carlson a whole bunch, and now Tucker Carlson is apparently shitting himself in fear of what might get leaked between what he was saying to Alex Jones back and forth. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets raided. And it isn't just like, oh, it's a petty little raid. It's like they were going after some serious fucking shit, and now Trump is straight up being like, well, I mean, fucking Obama leaked nuclear shit too. Why just me? Is this really this bad? Blah, blah, blah. Like, oh man, it just, whew, yeah, I know. Hope him on the stream. It's a weird feeling. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Reach out for an interview. He may be a fan. Solidarity. That's true, actually. True. Okay, hold on. Bankston, lawyer, Alex Jones. Let's see if I can. I don't know if he would have a Twitter. Do you think he would have a Twitter? Because that's usually how I can reach out to people. Because, clout. Or I guess I could call him. Because he has a public. Oh, it's Mark Bankston. All right. He's got an email and a phone number. Should I phone him live on the stream right now? No, I won't do that. We do that to the baddies. We don't do that to the heroes. But yeah, let me email. There you go. I'll send him an email. He's a lawyer. You can just contact his office. Maybe I'll be like, I need some legal advice. My advice is, how are you so great? And how can we all become good like you? Because I'm a big fan. All right, I got that ready to do later. I don't want to bore you with me writing out a letter being like, you are quite awesome. You are the bee's knees. I'm a big fan. Mark Bankston, not Brankston. Bankston. Bankston is the hero we deserve and need simultaneously at the same time. Oh, by the way, I fucking hate Matthew Dimitri. He is just one of the worst bad faith actors in clipping people out of context, and honestly, just like the smallest little things. He's done it to me like numerous times. Like when I was doing a satire of the CIA about how the CIA had these like woke ads, he said I was being sexist, or she, I don't know, it's an anonymous account, but they were basically saying that I was being sexist by being like, Yas Queen, the CIA, fucking blah blah blah, when I was actually mocking the ad itself being this weird kind of like, you know, pro-imperialist commercial, while at the same time being like, we have representation, look at this you know, CIA member happens to be Latina, and she also happens to be you know, a proud member of her community, and she likes to give back to her community, and she's part of the CIA. I was like making fun of that, and then boom, I popped up on this, and I was like, you absolute clown. But I think he's the only one who posted this interview, because you can't find it on Max Blumenthal's channel, where he was actually like going to the defense of Alex Jones.
I wanted to ask you about the person who is seen as the seminal conspiracy theorist, who has gotten, in my opinion, many things wrong and spread misinformation, who's even admitted to doing so. That would be Alex Jones. Alex Jones has also said things that have turned out to be true, whether you like him or not. I mean, I don't.
Yeah. If I speak the English language for 8 hours a day, and I say a whole bunch of things, some of it will be true, you know? That's how that thing works. If I'm like, by the way, I think the sun will rise tomorrow, and also, you know, hippopotamuses can fly, see right there, I've said something that is true and something that is false. And so for the 4+ hours that he does a show, there may lie a factual statement or even a prediction somewhere peppered inside. A little crumb of truth may arise. But if the vast majority of it is ridiculous conspiracy theory shit that is exceptionally dangerous to be spreading, because thousands upon thousands of people will believe it and want to take action upon it, then that's a problem. You can't just let that simmer. You can't just be like, but he has said a thing or two that turned out to be true. That's probably why the deep state doesn't like him. You know, it's because he speaks the truth, and he's not willing to censor himself. Unlike the corporate media, you won't see what he says on MSNBC or CNN because he's a truth teller, and that's why they hate him and need to take him down.
He's just someone who's just like completely his.
You know what's wild? Ben Norton, who also used to be part of the Gray Zone, he's come out now and he's basically saying things that fly in the face of all the conspiracy theorists. Like the other day, he made a bunch of tweets about how Marjorie Taylor Greene is in fact not a good person. And I was like, wow, Ben, good, growth, glad to see it. You're not one of the people who's like, oh, we should ally with this because she's tweeted out defund the FBI and also is selling shirts that say defund the FBI.
Political position and mine, I think, are very
No one gives this much credit to The Simpsons for predictions. They predicted Trump. I mean, The Simpsons predicted virtually everything. It's wild. So many episodes. But I guess that's kind of the confirmation bias there, too. We have, what, 25? 26 seasons? I don't know how. I stopped watching after, like, the 10th. So we have a lot of seasons of The Simpsons. There's going to be episodes of The Simpsons that will predict the future accurately. And there's going to be episodes of The Simpsons that show the entire family living under the sea. You know, suddenly being able to breathe underwater somehow. So you gotta mix the two, basically.
Distinct, but he's been in the crosshairs of this kind of counter disinformation industry that's state backed, especially since 2017 when he was removed in coordinated fashion
34
from all social media.
34 seasons, man, that sucks. Like any single time I'm staying somewhere where people have television, because I don't have TV, I've never fucking subscribed for cable television, but anytime I do, and like you're flipping through and then you see a new Simpsons episode, you're like, oh, I wonder what the dynamics and the politics of the show is like, and you watch it for like 10 minutes and you just like, I'm so depressed. It's honestly, it's just watching a slow car crash. Just god damn, it's so bad. They're gonna do an episode why they're good at predictions next season. Oh, interesting. The only thing of the new Simpsons that I ever saw that was good was the Banksy intro. That was it. With the Banksy intro, fucking slaps. That is an excellent fucking little piece of Simpson creativity there.
Platforms from Instagram to Twitter to Pinterest And I actually came out and opposed that, not because I was saying I'm a great Infowars fan, but because he's the canary in the coal mine. They're
kind of funny because the gray zone is basically leftist Infowars. That's what it is. Like, it's, I would say Infowars is far right and gray zone you could consider leftist, but it spreads just as many fucking conspiracy theories with unvalidated sources. They have the fucking audacity to try and get people to believe that apparently there's this massive conspiracy theory involving Philosophy Tube directly being funded by both the British government and the CIA, and their sources were things like this have happened in the past. Trust me, bro. Also was a bit of a transphobic article as well. They corrected some of the transphobic parts after everyone pointed them out, and then added things like other bread tubers like Sean and blah 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 must receive massive funding from these government agencies. And then Jimmy Dore ended up doing a story on it where he was just straight up. He's like, you know, Sean did a hit piece on me, and it really goes to show, like, how does he have such high production value? How is he able to produce content of this high quality? Like, the only thing that really justifies it would be he's getting CIA funding. I was like, Sean? I love Sean. Like, I consider him an online friend, but like, I don't watch Sean's shit and think, wow, this is the highest caliber fucking production value. Like, you could make this accusation about ContraPoints, maybe, with the amount of pageantry she has, but Sean is usually a static photo for like 3 hours. It's like a 3-hour fucking video with just a picture of a skull. That's what his stuff is. You know, there might be like sources that pop up every now and then, but that's about it. This is CIA funded propaganda. Whew. All right. The Skull Man.
Going after the easiest target. And I saw all these left lib accounts just cheering it on. Like, yes, we got rid of that monster. Well, now he has just been fined something like $41 million.
Hell yeah.
49 and a half. Well, it's a total of, it ends up being like 49 and a half total.
He's been sued by the parents of a victim of the Sandy Hook shooting.
Not the deep state.
In Connecticut. Was it Connecticut?
This one was Texas, but then he's got a Connecticut, a couple of Connecticut cases and another one in Texas.
2 more.
He's got 13 plaintiffs going against him in various different lawsuits.
Yeah.
This one was dealing with 2 of them.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I don't have all the details down, but what's clear to me is that the victims of these plaintiffs are portraying themselves as the victims of too much free speech. And Alex Jones.
No, Max, that's not what they're portraying themselves as. They received a fucking fuck ton of harassment from Alex Jones fans because he lied to his audience that they were fucking lying about their dead kids, that their kids weren't real, that they never even had dead children. That's why, and people believed it. And then he platformed a Holocaust denier, as well as some other people that he did not vet at all, who also spread that conspiracy. And then he amplified their voices, so they continued to receive more harassment, during which it's a process when they should have been allowed to grieve, you know, because their kids were murdered, that whole thing. It's fucking barbaric that this whole thing took place in the first place. Like, all the power to those parents. Fucking sue him into oblivion. God damn.
Jones is
why, like, I don't understand why anyone would want to choose this as kind of like, maybe because it's so high profile, but why is this your cross to bear? Why is this supposed to be a standard of free speech? Why is it supposed to be like, you know, once they come after Alex Jones, they'll come after all of us, you know? Am I not allowed to say that apparently Syrians were not actually chemically gassed by Bashar al-Assad? Am I not allowed to say that out loud? Am I allowed to say maybe that these are crisis actors, or that this was the actions of the U.S. government, or this was the White Jackets, or something like that? Am I not allowed to say that out loud on a regular basis? I mean, who's next? Who next will not be allowed to lie for money?
Is setting the stage for, in my opinion, a flood of libel suits against those who are deemed conspiracy theorists.
Well, I can see why you're worried about that. That makes perfect sense.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jester, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.